We continue now at the top of Daf Yomi Gemara and Mesechet Shekalim. This is Shekalim Daf 13b. Since the Gemara in the previous Amud was discussing the milas of the early Chachamim, the Gemara now takes an aside to discuss some of the other praises of the Chachamim. Amar Rabbi Yonah says, Ksiv, the pasuk says, L'chein achalek lo berabim v'esatzumim yecholek shalol. The pasuk over here is referring to the fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to apportion a certain inheritance with the Avos Harishonim to certain individuals, and the Gemara says, Zer Rabbi Akiva, when it says achalek lo, I'm going to apportion to him, it refers to Rabbi Akiva. Shehiskin medrish halachas v'agadas, he instituted medrish and halach and agadata. V'yesh amrim, some say elu anshe knesses hagadola tiknu. The medrish, the halach, and the agadata was actually instituted by the anshe knesses hagadola. Elamati ken zeh, rather, what does the pasuk refer to, which Rabbi Akiva instituted? Klolos upratos. Rabbi Akiva instituted klolos. Many times we find the Gemara says klal amar Rabbi Akiva, and pratos, also specifics, particulars. It says that Rabbi Akiva used to darshan every kotes, betage haTorah, every single little extra notation in the Torah was darshan tilam shel halachas, many halachas. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rabbi Yavo says, Ksiv, the pasuk says in Divrei Hayomim, Mishpacha Sofrim Yoshvei Yavitz, the family of Sofrim, those who settle with Yavitz, and Yavitz here is a reference to Asniel ben Kenaz. The idea over here is Asniel ben Kenaz was the moshel at that time, and he taught them. And so the Gemara says, Ma Talmud Lomar Sofrim, what is this praise that they're considered the Mishpacha Sofrim, the family of Sofrim? Elisha HaTorah Sephoros. What it means to say is they made the Torah, they enumerated the Torah, they set numbers to the Torah. The idea is they placed simonim to the Torah, and they counted the number of halachas, and that's the praise, again, of this mishpacha. And the Gemara now continues and gives examples from various mishnayos, where the mishnayos also give halachas by number. For example, in Mesechet Trumas it says, Chamisha lo yisramu truma, 5 situations where they don't take truma. Hey devarim chayavin b'chala, in Mesechet Chala, 5 things that are chayav in chala. Chomesh esrei nashim potros tzarosein. This is a Mishnah in Yevamas, again, 15 women who pater their tzaros. Then we have a Mishnah here, Shloshim v'sheish krisus b'Torah. This is a Mishnah Mesechet Krisus, again, gives an example of 36 cases of krisus in the Torah. We also have Shalosh esrei davar nemru b'nivlas ha'of hatar. This is a Mishnah Mesechet Taharos, 13 halachas that are said by nivlas of tahar. And then we have another example in the beginning of Mesechet Bava Kama, Daled Avos Nezikin, 4 Avos Nezikin, and another example in Mesechet Shabbos, Avos Malachos, Arboim Chasar Achas. There are 39 Avos Malachos. These are all examples where the Mishnah takes halachas and gives you a specific number in order to organize the halachas. And the Gemara continues along the same lines. Amar Rabbi Eliezer says, Ksiv le'Ezra HaKohen HaSofer. It says in the pasuk talking about Ezra, it says Ezra HaKohen HaSofer, and then Ma Talmud Lomar Sofer. Then the pasuk continues and says Sofer Divrei Mitzvos Hashem. Why does it have to say the word Sofer a second time? Rather, what the pasuk means is as follows: Ela kashem shel Sofer b'Divrei Torah. Just like he was a Sofer when it came to Divrei Torah, meaning he counted all the osios Shabbat Torah. Kach Sofer b'Divrei Chachamim. In the same way, he would count the Divrei Chachamim. In other words, he would give numbers to the halachas, like we said before. And the Gemara continues, Rav Chagai b'shem Rav Shmuel bar Nachman. Rav Chagai says in the name of Rav Shmuel bar Nachman, Harishonim, the early Chachamim, Charshu v'zaru nichshu kischu idru katzru amru dashu zaru baru tachanu herkidu lashu kitfu v'yafu. The idea here is it's a metaphor. The Rishonim, they did the plowing for us, they planted for us, they did everything involved in the process of making the bread, even baking the bread. They prepared all the halachas for us. Ve'anu ein lanu ma'alecho, but still we don't have what to eat. In other words, the point is, even though the Rishonim went through all of this trouble in order to set up all of the halachas on our behalf, to enumerate the halachas, to count the halachas, to make it easy for us to understand the Torah, still it is difficult for us to understand the Torah properly. And the Gemara continues along the same lines. Rabbi Abba bar Zemina b'shem Rabbi Zeira. Rabbi Abba bar Zemina says in the name of Rabbi Zeira, in Havun kadmoin malochin, if the early generations are like angels, anon b'nei enosh, then we're like humans. V'in havon b'nei enosh, and if the early generations are like humans, anon chamorin, then we are like donkeys. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rabbi Mona says, Bahi Shaita, at that time, Amrin, they said, now at that time we're talking about Rabbi Zera, that Rabbi Zera made a statement. The story was as follows. There was a story with Rabbi Yirmiyah. Rabbi Yirmiyah sent some figs to Rabbi Zera, and Rabbi Yirmiyah had not taken off Demai because he thought that certainly Rabbi Zera is going to take off Meiser before he eats. And Rabbi Zera, when he received the food, he didn't take off Meiser because he thought it was already taken off. So he ended up eating without taking off the Meiser. So that's what Rabbi Mona is saying, at that moment, Reb Zera said, Afilu kechamarti to Reb Pinchas ben Yoer lo idminun. We're not even as great as the donkey of Rabbi Pinchas ben Yoer. Rabbi Pinchas ben Yoer's donkey is greater than us because he was more machmir. The donkey was more machmir when it came to the issue of Meiser, as the Gemara now elaborates. And the Gemara says, Chamarti to Rabbi Pinchas ben Yoer. The story was that the donkey of Rabbi Pinchas ben Yoer, Gonavta listoi Bilelia. So some robbers stole this donkey at night. Avadata Tamira Gabon Talasa Yomin Velotama Klum. So the animal was there for 3 days. It was hidden by the Ganovim for 3 days, and the animal would not eat anything because of a concern. The animal, the Chamor, did not want to eat something where the proper Meiser was not taken off. So after 3 days, the robbers decided we're going to return the donkey to the owner. Amri, they said, Afkinun min hachal, let's get this donkey out of here. The Lotemus Gabon, we don't want it to die by us over here because it's going to create a foul odor. It's going to create a bad stench. They had it in a cave, so they wanted to get it out of there. So Afkuna, so they took it out. Azlas v'kamasla altara damar, it went to the gate of its owner. Sharias menahekes, and then it began to open its mouth and it began to make some noise. So Amar alone, so he said, Pischon lahada lufta. So Reb Pinchas ben Yair said to his students, open up the gate, let the aluva in, let this donkey in. The isla tlas yom and the hasn't eaten for 3 days, so you got to let the donkey in. So Paschon, so that's what they did. They opened the gate. V'alisla, the donkey entered. Amar alone, you have a lot klum teichel, you have a lot klum. So Reb Pinchas ben Yair said, give it a little teichel, give it a little bit that it should eat. So Yavon kumas sa'orin. So the students put in front of the donkey some barley. V'lo bois l'meichel. The donkey did not want to eat anything. So Amrin le Rebbe lo bois l'meichel. So they said to Reb Pinchas ben Yair, the donkey doesn't want to eat. Amar lon, so he said to them, Misaknin, is that everything fixed? Meaning, did you take off all the proper meisers? So Amru layin, they said yes. Amar lon varimtun damyon, so he said, okay, you took off meisers, but did you even take off the iser demai? Normally, again, when you get something from an amoritz, if that's called demai, you have to take off an extra meiser just in case the amoritz didn't take off meiser. So Amrun lay lo. So they said, what do you mean? Of course we didn't take off meiser. Kain alfun Rebbe, didn't Rebbe teach us? Halokeach zera lebehema kemach laoros shemen laor pater min admai. This is one of the examples of a situation where you pater from demai. It says if you take zera to feed to an animal, or you take kemach to use for oros for hides, or you take shemen, you take oil in order to light it, you don't need to worry about demai. Amar lon, so he said to them, Man navid lo lahada alufta. So what are we going to do to this donkey, to this poor donkey? Di mechamra al gar masag, and he's very machmir. The donkey is very machmir on herself. V'arim damyan. So therefore, the students did indeed take off the mai v'achalt, and then the animal ate. So again, that's the story that Reb Zera said that the donkey of Reb Pinchas ben Yoer is even greater than us. And the Gemara continues, Psachia ala Kinan. Psachia was the one who was appointed over the Kinan. The Kinan, again, were the birds that were brought as karbanos. And as we said, Psachia refers to Mordechai. So the Gemara says, Bo rei magodelu kocho shalosoish. Come and see how great is the strength of this individual, Psachia. Poseach devarim v'darshan. He's able to open up matters and he's able to darshan them. The idea over here is there's a lot of cheshbonos. There's a lot of calculations that need to be made when it comes to Kinan, because there's all kinds of sveikas that come up in Mesechet Kinan, and Psachia, Mordechai, was able to deal with all of those sveikas. And the Gemara continues at the two dots, Yodea Ba'ai in Lashon, the Mishnah says that Psachia or Mordechai knew 70 languages. So the Gemara says, Tani, it was taught, Sanhedrin sheyesh b'shnayim sheyecholun ledaber. If you have a Sanhedrin that 2 people on the Sanhedrin can speak all 70 languages, v'chulan ru'uyin l'shmon, everyone can at least understand all 70 languages, harezu ru'uya l'Sanhedrin. Such a Sanhedrin might not be great, but it's fit enough to be a Sanhedrin. Now Gimel, if you have 3 people who could speak 70 languages, harezu beinanis, that's an average Sanhedrin. Dalit, if you have 4 people on the Sanhedrin that can speak 70 languages, harezu chachma, that's considered a wise Sanhedrin. Over Yavna, and in the Sanhedrin in Yavna, hayu badala, there were indeed 4 people that could speak 70 languages, and they were Ben Azai, Ben Zomu, Ben Chachinoi, Rebbe Lazar ben Masya. Those were the 4 individuals who could speak the 70 languages. And the Gemara continues, Amar of Chisda says, Pamachas Yavsha Eretz Yisrael, there was one time where Eretz Yisrael was dry, there was very little crops. They didn't know where they were going to get the Omer from. V'havatamon chadilem, and there was over there was one person who was a mute. To have a yoev chad yodei al gagos v'chad yodei al tzrifim, and he took one hand and he put it on towards the roofs, and he took another hand and he put it on the tzrifim. The tzrifim was a sukkah it basically had no roof, and so he pointed to it. So Aisune kame de Psachia. So they brought this mute to Psachia. Amar Luhu, he said to them, Is asar de Meskarya Gagos Tzrifin. Is there a location that's referred to anywhere in Eretz Yisrael as Gagos Tzrifin, or Tzrifin Gagos, or maybe it's referred to as Tzrifin Gagos? And there indeed was Aslan Latamon ve'eshkechon. So they went to that particular area and they found something to bring for the Omer. Again, so this is a demonstration of the understanding of Psachia. The Gemara continues with a similar story. Amar Rabbi Yossi Bei Rabbi Bon. Rabbi Yossi Bei Rabbi Bon says, Pamachas, there was one time, Nishtaf Kol Olam Kulo. Again, the world was struck, and there was no crafts. V'lo hayu yodin mehechan lahavi omer. They didn't know vhere they were going to get the omer from. V'havatamon charilim. There was a certain mute to have a yoev yodei aleine v'yodei al suchra. So this particular mute put one hand on his eyes, and he put one hand on the suchra. The suchra was the area where you drill in the mezuzah at the side of the door. Aisune lagave Psachia. Again, they brought the mute to Psachia. Amar Lon, he said to them, Is asar de meskarya ein sukar o sukar ayin? Is there a place called ein sukar, or maybe it's called sukar ayin? Ve'azlon tamon v'ashkachon. Again, they went to this particular location, and they were able to find the crop for the omer. And the Gemara continues with another story to demonstrate the wisdom of Psachia. Gimel noshim heviu kineyin. There was once a story where 3 women brought their birds for korbanos. Achas omeres le'einasi, ve'achas omeres liyamasi, ve'achas omeres lezivasi. One of the women said she was bringing it le'einasi. One of them said she was bringing it liyamasi. And the third one said she was bringing it lizivasi. So they didn't know exactly what all these women meant. So Zusho omeres le'einasi, the one who said le'einasi, savrin meimar shofas kemaya. And they thought le'einasi means like a spring, meaning she had seen tumah like a spring, blood had flowed from her. So Amar Lon, ba'aina, so ba'aina sakantis. So Psachia said, no, that's not what's going on. What's going on over here was she had some kind of a sakana with her eye, and she was healed, and she's actually bringing this for a nedava. Now the difference is, if you're bringing it for tumah, you bring one for a carbon ola, one for a carbon chatas. And Psachia was saying, no, she's bringing 2 olos. This is an olas nedava as a thanks for the fact that she was saved. And similarly, Zusha omeres liyamasi savrin meimar shofas kiyam. The one who said liyamasi, the Chachamim thought that it meant she was flowing like a sea. Again, she was bringing it because she saw tumah. So Amar Lon, so he said to them, no, biyama sakant. Same basic idea. She was in danger in the sea and she was saved. And again, she's really bringing 2 carbon olos as an adava because of the salvation. And Zusha omeres lezivasi. And finally, the one who said lezivasi, savrin meimar zava mamish. They thought she meant she was a zava. Again, she had seen the tumah of zava. Amar Lon, so he said to them, Ze'ev ba litol esbena. There was a wolf that came, tried to take her son. Again, there was a salvation. That's why she's actually bringing 2 carbon olos. And the Gemara continues at the 2 dots, Ben Achia v'chulu. It said in the Mishnah that Ben Achia was the doctor. He was in charge for the Kohanim that had intestinal problems. And the Gemara says, Al Yadesha HaKohanim Mahalchin Yechefim Ala Ritzba. The reason why the Kohanim had stomach problems was because they would walk barefoot on the floor, V'hayu Ochlin Basar, and they would eat meat, V'shos and Mayim, and they would drink water. Hayu Boin Lidei Cholei HaMeyayim. This caused an illness in the intestines. V'havayod Haiden Chamar Tav L'Mayaya. And this particular individual, Achia, Ben Achia, so he knew what wine was good for the intestines, V'haiden Chamar Samam L'Mayaya, and which kind of wine was bad for the intestines. And then the Mishnah said there was an individual, Nechunya Chofer Shichin. Nechunya used to dig the pits. This was in order to provide water for those who were traveling up to Yerushalayim on the Regel. And the Gemara says, Shaya Chofer Shichin U'Ma'aros V'Aviyada. He used to dig these various pits, and he knew. And we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Yud Daled Amud Aleph.